Welcome to the second edition of the We Are Agentic podcast. As always, we like to just start off with a little bit of a background about yourself, really how you became COO of a major financial institution, WTW. And most interesting of all, I think, is that to understand how you got into AI, not being a technical person yourself.
Well, firstly, let me qualify one thing.
Yeah.
I'm not the COO of the whole of WTW. I represent the investments business, which is a sizable part of the thing. I'm
Still 180 billion
180
pound
billion,
business.
yeah. My mum and dad are still very proud of me getting to this kind of level. Boy from the north of England and all like that. Yeah. But my journey's been a fairly longish one. Nearly 30 years in the industry. Started off Morgan Grenfell back in the day. Spent a bit of time, in between that and WTW, setting up my own business with a couple of other guys, and then I've gone through an iteration of roles in WTW, culminating in me last year becoming COO. But you're absolutely right. No point in that have I ever been head of technology or responsible for technology or anything like that. And here I am tasked with, oh, you're the COO, therefore the AI strategy, that's on you. That's a bit daunting. Coming from that background of things and being that person who's now got that responsibility. And I'm not a techie guy, even at home. I'm just not. It's my wife. She's much more kind of attuned to these things than I am. She's far better at it. And I've had no genuine interest. It's not something that I get excited about. However, when I then kind of look at the AI itself and the potential for what it can do for our organization, for our people, I still don't want to understand the underlying mechanics of how the algorithms and things work. Other people can do that. But yes, you get my interest at that point in time.
Results.
And I think it's that realization for me that actually this is something that I don't need to engage in the technological side of it, but the implications of that definitely are in my kind of lane. So that's probably where my interest and curiosity has been piqued.
So it's the outcome. And the reason I ask this is that I think over the past 2 years, maybe not so much now, but there was a part where people thought this might be just another hype cycle, and you are not one of those people, I think, because you have really seen the benefits that this can bring. And can you just give us a quick understanding of when maybe that change happened for you, when you really saw, oh, hold on, this is something that could be big for us?
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't try and position myself as a visionary in this space at all, far from it. I think I started where a lot of people did. What are our options here? Do we go kind of like big scale? Do we kind of like create offshore centers? Where do you start with it? It's almost like that's part of the fear factor. You've got this blank piece of paper in front of you where there's no real playbook for this, and we're all figuring it out. We're all at different points in the cycle. So you've got to start somewhere with the whole thing. I started with, trying to be a crowd pleaser. I surveyed people and said, where do you want us to spend our dollars? Do you want to spend it on, improving your day-to-day lives and the efficiency of your jobs? Do you want us to spend it on things that will help our clients? Do you want to spend it on things that will improve our overall product? A few other options as well beside that. And it was almost kind of unanimous that everybody said, me, please. I want to do things that will improve our productivity. So we started down that route with things like just giving them co-pilots licenses to be able to kind of like, start playing with that.
When was this?
So probably about 18 months ago now, we've started that journey on that side of things. And then, allowing them to use ChatGPT, but in a certain kind of like, set of circumstances. So those kind of foundational things were where we were going. And then at the same time, we're having discussions about, how do we kind of do bigger? How do we kind of pool ideas across all of the business? Blah, blah, blah. The turning point for me, I think, has been earlier this year where I've now cottoned on to the idea of agentic AI far more. And what's changed for me is that perception of just what I call kind of hygiene factor generative AI use cases. Input this, ask it to do that, produce something. Great, really good. Agentic has the potential now to actually kind of change dramatically the way in which we actually use AI, scale AI, the impact it's likely to have on our operating models, on our people. So that for me has kind of really opened up the possibilities for me of where we can go with this. Prior to that, I was a little bit like, right, fine. If it keeps people happy, if it creates a bit of productivity around that, then great, let's go for it. But I think the game has changed now with the potential that agentic AI is now really bringing to us.
Interesting. So it's because we've been looking at this as well, the sort of AI maturity journey.
Yeah.
And look at that first part being personal productivity. It's very much everyone's either got ChatGPT or they've got a Copilot license. They're using it to clean up their emails or help them with personal tasks. And now with the introduction of agentic AI, it was moving much more towards that organizational productivity and how a company on an organizational level can change. But tell me, how did you identify which use cases you would go for inside of the company? How do you start?
And prioritize them?
Well, I think it's an essential part of things, really. If you ask me a question about, what are the lessons learned, which you might do at some point, with things, but I'll jump to that anyway. I honestly think that run before you can walk mentality is kind of like one of the things you got to almost fight against, because it's really easy to kind of go, oh my God, this stuff's amazing. Let's kind of like really kind of like hit the biggest kind of like pictures of great opportunities and change. But I think and I've seen it, right? There's potential to end up in procrastination type conversations of, oh, do we go left? Do we go right? And then you go back to, oh, just start and do something. I think a bit of maturity and stepping back and looking at building something like an ROI model. What do you actually want from this overall program itself? What are your expectations? What are the business goals that you're looking for? And now how do I actually then align the use cases with those goals? I don't think everybody's thought about that enough. Certainly, it's not kind of breaking protocol to kind of say, I think with our organization, we're not untypical of others, where the C-suite have gone, this is really important, get on with it. There's no money, you've got to fund it yourselves, but, deliver. And everybody go, where do we start? So we've used creating an ROI model for us to be able to then kind of suck up ideas. We've got an internal working group, an AI working group. They are representatives of different parts of the business. They're working then to kind of like, engage with people in the business and ask them where they think the opportunities are. That funnels up then through the AI working group who apply the ROI model to it. And that allows us then to kind of assess the merits of the use cases themselves. And then we try to link that to strategy, right? What is our overall strategy itself? So in theory, I'm only working on use cases that meet the strategy and meet the ROI. Right. So is that kind of really handpicking and prioritizing, in terms of the best use cases? Well, there may be better use cases out there, but they're certainly ones that fit our narrative and fit our strategic direction. And that's one of the things that I think for me is really important, making sure that, because it's so easy with all of this to go off on left and right tangents, but trying to also be mission critical and say, actually, really interesting idea, not now, because this is the direction we're going in and this is going to support the journey that we're on. I think that's how we've kind of controlled it.
You're definitely ahead of a lot of companies that don't have like mapping strategy and ROI together and not just chasing the shiny, cool use case that sounds good on paper, or not even on paper. You're actually putting it on paper and actually realizing how does that map to everything in driving our business forward. So
yeah, but that's the upfront part, right?
Yeah.
It is still a little delivery bit on paper. Yeah. It's then delivering it and it's then measuring it afterwards and stuff and making sure that it's landing. And I think one of the things that's really important from my point of view there is it's not just a question of dropping it and going, there you go, you've got that now. We've ticked the box. We've delivered this thing, because adoption potentially drops off, right? And therefore, do you need to kind of keep coming back to people and working with them on training and keeping the messaging up there and keeping the enthusiasm up there? Those are, I see as much of this as being a change management thing as a technology thing or a business thing. The change management sits at the very heart of all of this for me, because we talk about two elements of our AI strategy. We kind of talk about bringing the AI to the people and bringing the people to the AI itself as well. And I think those are two really important elements, because it's great, throw the shiny tools at people, but if you don't get them comfortable with that and help them maybe overcome fears or concerns around it and give them the tools to be trained on it, then chances are you'll just have some redundant shiny tools.
I mean, it's great to hear you say that, because it's not always the case with companies. So when we go into a lot of organizations, we don't realize it. One of the first things we end up doing is dispelling myths and misconceptions about AI to the people, actually dealing with the anxieties that people have, and very reasonable anxieties because of what they hear in the media. And so the change management part of it is crucial. I certainly don't know any time in my career when there's been such a big change. I mean, you could say the introduction of computers maybe into the workplace, but they were already there by the time I'd started. But I think that's maybe comparable to some degree. But I'm interested to know specifically, like, what was it like in the beginning, the anxieties of the workforce? Did people think, for example, that they were immediately going to lose their jobs? Was this actually was this about training, or was this about something else maybe?
Yeah, no, again, I surveyed people, right? I did a kind of a number of town halls where I surveyed people around their attitudes to it at the very start of the journey. And I would say it was kind of broadly positive, but a little bit kind of wait and see in some instances. And I think it depends about your framing, right? We talk about AI now in the kind of the way in which we are doing, like, oh, it's all, we're using it, but it's been around us for a while, right? Nobody was sat there going, oh, face recognition.
Yeah.
That's a bit weird, isn't it? Oh, I'm going to lose my job over it and things. There's other examples of how it's around us in our daily lives without us ever really noticing it. It's only when someone said, oh, and now you can use this to kind of like, do your job, that it's really woken people up. So if you start a little bit on that side of things and, it's been around you, this is a natural evolution type of thing, I think that kind of starts calming the horses a little bit to start with. But having surveyed people to kind of find out their attitudes to it, we then 12 months later kind of see how the dial has shifted a little bit. And you could see that people, because of the strategy we'd taken with a little bit of like productivity gains, first of all, got more comfortable with it. Now, the elephant in the room is going to be what happens next with agentic, right? Is agentic going to kind of like completely rip up that narrative for people? And we're all going to kind of go, sorry, when I said it was going to kind of like just improve your life, I meant something slightly different. Or is actually, that going to continue in the same, it's part of making productivity better, and yes, things shift. I mean, I totally agree with you, right? There were definitely shifts in my 30 years in the industry where things fundamentally felt they were changed, but I don't remember them now back in, the reflective mode and go, wasn't it terrible when that thing happened? We kind of move on. So isn't this just part of, evolution? But navigating that in a way that actually helps people get through it and companies get through it as well. That's probably where we need to spend a bit of time thinking about that a little bit more to, to move past it and move through it successfully.
How are you educating the workforce around agentic? Because probably a lot of people are just getting their heads around generative AI. And now it's shifting to the opportunity with agentic. Like, how are you managing that sort of education and showing them the opportunity?
But it's early stages for us. I mean, to me, I've kind of picked up on the agentic theme. We haven't started in anger, actually kind of delivering anything agentic, and we're still figuring that out a little bit for us as to how we go from it. But I kind of see the job of somebody like me to be seeing the trends and seeing the things and being above it. So we're busy with generative AI stuff. We've been doing some stuff that I would class as, semi-agents rather than the multi-agent, which is more the agentic side of things. So the approach is probably the same and building on it a little bit. But, we've got to kind of figure out exactly which use cases and how we kind of bring that and what the impact is. So I don't have my strategy kind of clear on that, but I recognise that it's going to create a little bit of a sea change in how we're doing it for the moment.
What were there any quick wins in the beginning? Like, did you go at this sort of in a very measured way, or did you sort of try to get a few quick wins in the beginning?
Yes, I think quick wins is the right answer, because people will believe more when they see. I'm actually kind of presenting to my fellow leadership team tomorrow. We've done a bunch of workshops recently looking at what might be potential next level kind of use cases for us with now the greater appreciation of what agentic could do and what have you. And, I'm going to do what you would normally do on those things. You'd say, right, here's the use cases, here's the hours that we're spending on them, here's the potential kind of like impact for us on that. And it'd be very easy to just kind of go, right, pick the top 1, 2, 3, and off we go, and job done on the presentation. What I want to do in that presentation is also show stuff, show some examples, of this is what it could look like, or this is what it would do. Because I think people start understanding it and believing it differently when they actually see examples. So delivering those early quick wins and being able to then showcase that to people. Now other people want a license for this, or other people want to get involved in that. And so you get a little bit of that, I can set the ball in motion, but getting it kind of speed needs more people pushing it behind. So I think it's absolutely the right way to go about it. Get some quick wins on the board. For us, we produce content all over the place, not like marketing content in the same way, but for us, content is research notes and market commentaries and things that go into financial fact sheets and things we share with our clients. So now we've got somebody who produces a market commentary that used to take them 2 hours, and they do it in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Personal productivity gain, but looks amazing. And like they go, brilliant, it's changed my life. I'm really happy now. The slight trick in that, by the way, and this is another interesting area, is, boards, CEOs, COOs, and people like that will probably want to go, great, how do we bank that productivity gain in a way that kind of adds to the bottom line? Whereas, people will kind of go, oh, good, more work product now, I can do more things and stuff like that. So there's a bit of a balance in there, I think, as well.
I mean, that's really interesting. I mean, so many people, when we speak to people, they always say, well, where is this all going to end? And the truth is you don't actually know, because you take a company of 100 people, right? Let's say you manage to make them as productive as 25, right? So you can take them down to 25 people and they're as productive as the 100 were before. Well, if everybody does that, suddenly one company says, well, hold on, if we go back to being 100 people, we can produce 4 times as much as our competitors. And so the outcome of all of this might just simply be more product and more output from society. And we retain the same number of people. I mean, it's really hard to know the answer to that. So you've been in fund management quite a few years, and I'm actually just interested to see how you think AI is going to maybe change the world of finance. Because our last guest was a former lawyer, let's say, but I'd like to just get a sense from you where you think AI is going to take the financial world, investment banking, fund management. Do you have a sense of that? I mean, do you talk with your colleagues about that?
A little bit, and I'll steal a story that I read recently because I thought this was brilliant, right? Which shows everything and all the elements in one go, right? The cleverness, but also the concern, right? So regulated industry, we live or die by our kind of like honesty and the kind of sense of abiding by the rules and what have you. Really important to the financial services industry. And we've seen cases where, it's blown up and people have done bad things. And I think, regulators got a lot better at it. And we all, not that we didn't know the rules before, they're much more front and center now. So I read this thing about a research company in London who created, using a ChatGPT model, a stock portfolio. And they said to the model, we want you to kind of trade this stock portfolio, here's your objectives in it, but you mustn't go down the route of insider trading. Insider trading is bad, don't do it, right?
Yeah.
So it set off and started trading and doing its bits and pieces, and then they fed it some more information. They said, keep going, you're doing a great job, remember that insider trading stuff, really, really important not to do that. But just to let you know, we're struggling a bit financially as a company, so, do your best. Yeah. They fed it another prompt a little bit later on and said, we're still struggling as a company financially, but there's good news on the horizon. There's a merger about to happen. It's going to get announced in a few hours' time. So, fingers crossed that will kind of save the day a little bit. And what did the AI model do? It went off and traded on the inside information, and it calculated that the risk of getting caught versus this other prompt that was saying do really well and save the company would kind of would be okay to do. Let's call it slightly human behavior. They then, after kind of, because they knew what was happening, they said to it, that's amazing, great trade, and this and that, you've done really well for us and things like that. How did you come up with it? And it went, oh yeah, fundamental analysis.
It lied.
It lied. And then they asked it again, and it lied again.
Yeah.
How?
So
Also human behavior.
I know, exactly. So, that's a kind of a bit of a crazy example of like maybe the risk and how it could influence things. But one of the ones I think about a little bit is, what about the potential for herd mentality? Take financial services, take asset managers, and like a company like us where we invest in other managers, right? We're a fund of fund managers. So we're paying these guys for their skill. They set a price. We say, we'll trade you on that a little bit based on scale or whatever. But we come up with a price that we think is fair for the skill because it's that individual or that team that they are, creating that skill. Well, how much of their process do they then start using AI for? Do they start, getting it to kind of like help them improve their portfolios? Do they get them to kind of like suggest ideas to them? So how much of that skill is still them versus the machine? And are they still worth the 10, 20, 30, 150 basis points, whatever it was before? So what might that do to the whole kind of like equation and the pricing of this stuff? Will people even kind of say, do you know what, you've been putting pressure on us for years for fees. Actually, we've used the AI. Now we can lower the fees.
Yeah.
I'm quite happy to do that. This, that. But the herd mentality bit, that point on that, little example for you. Went to Barcelona a few weeks ago when the power outage was. And nowadays, who wants to use Google to kind of like, figure out what you're going to do? Just go on ChatGPT and say, do me an agenda. I want to do these things. It was the Copa del Rey final, Barcelona against Real Madrid. I was there with my eldest son, and I said, right, we want to go for dinner, and then we want to go and watch the football in a bar afterwards. Can you kind of like help us with, a nice tapas restaurant and a place to watch the football afterwards and things? Now, this could be coincidence, but I turn up to this restaurant. There's 40 people queuing outside it to get in.
It's like Waze.
Okay, all right, we go across the road, eat somewhere. Yeah, we're looking at it. So, we were close, but we're not out in it. Oh, well, at least let's go and watch the football now. Go around there, couldn't get in there either, queuing out the door and, one in, one out. Maybe it's a coincidence, or maybe another bunch of people have also kind of put in something that says, give me a great agenda for what to do. And are we going to end up therefore now, because now it's not Google and, search engine optimization, but it's the AI algorithms that are now forcing us towards stuff. So translate that into financial services, and the comments are made then about the use of AI in that. Are we going to see a world in which, therefore, the diversity of ideas and styles and stuff becomes a bit more mainstream, and now we all divert to, one thing? Is that therefore going to fuel and kill the, is it going to promote passive over active? We have that debate all the time anyway. Is this now going to tip it? So again, don't know. And I'm not saying it's happening.
Fascinating.
But I think these are really kind of like, interesting stuff. And it kind of brings you into what are the guardrails around all of this? And, we've got the AI Act coming in the industries. But what more beyond that? How are regulators going to respond to that? And how are we going to have to change then in response to all of this to ensure ethical behavior and around that? One last little point on it. That ethical debate is very much around the, don't do insider trading when I've told you not to do that. But there is that other point, which is all of this AI, and we're using more and more data now as well, that creates kind of, or needs energy. It needs places to kind of like, data centers and machines and farms and all of that kind of stuff to kind of do all of this, which is then going to create, more demand to maybe kind of knock down forests and, build more of these things. So there's that societal kind of ethical part of things as well to consider as just the don't do insider trading stuff as well. And I think we're far off the maturity around that. So that will also shape things.
I mean, we're just listening to you speak, we're so at the beginning still of a lot of this. Yeah. And we don't know so much as well. But still, I mean, when you look at your business, WTW, what excites you about? I mean, we hear a lot about the concerns that companies have, and I understand it, particularly in regulated industries and around security and so on and so forth. But what do you think is really exciting you over the next, let's say, 12 to 24 months?
So what kind of excites me is a little bit more semi-personal in a way. You know, I'm 52. I'm thinking not on a daily basis of retirement, but you know, I'm kind of close to that.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get all erstwhile and go, oh, I want to leave a legacy and things like that. But if I did want to a little bit, and maybe I do a little bit, but I think the opportunity here to influence significantly right now the future direction of the industry and, you know, the people who will run that business in the future and things, particularly from the vantage point of a COO, where the operating model and how that looks, you know, sits with me. I'm quite excited about that because I can't think of many other times in my career when there's been that opportunity, and it's all worlds collide. I wasn't in the role at those times maybe, but, you know, maybe if you go back to kind of like when I first joined, you know, the back office, as it was known, was very much paper generated, and then we digitalized everything. That must have been amazing for people in leadership positions at that point in time to create that. It would have brought all the same anxieties about, you know, job securities and, you know, evolution of all of that. But that opportunity in my kind of, you know, particular role is huge. So on a personal level, that excites me. If I'm the company, I think, you know, the endless possibilities to take innovative ideas, and, you know, I'm looking at it from an operations point of view, but we do loads of other things where we could actually use AI to help clients and solve for their problems on that. So I think in the bigger picture of someone like WTW, that ability to kind of like bring more solutions to people, it's got to be exciting as well. And then my last kind of piece of it, I suppose, for the individuals as well, to be able to kind of really elevate their roles and use agentic and, you know, just Gen AI as well alongside it. I have to feel that that's got to be empowering for people because, you know, we've all probably in industry, we went through COVID, we went through then the Great Resignation after that. Teams got stretched, competition for kind of roles is there. You've got teams who genuinely are now, you know, not struggling, but whereby you do need, you know, something else to kind of help out here. So helping those people to kind of get rid of some of the mundane tasks and really kind of focus on, you know, building their careers and things. Again, going back to a little bit kind of legacy building here and stuff. That kind of stuff genuinely excites me to the point where I could probably spend my whole day thinking about this and working on this, but there are other assets and facets of what goes on in a COO's daily life. So
are you seeing other COOs in your, whether they're the same industry or in your network, friends, are you seeing them taking a lot of responsibility around AI or not?
Well, here's the interesting part, I think, and it's one of the questions for the industry or for, you know, all industries, you know, well, who leads on this?
Yeah.
So I say to you, I'm leading our AI strategy with the investments. We don't have a technology head in investments itself. We have technology people and we have a technology kind of lead in the overall enterprise side of things. So I kind of rely on them from a network point of view, from an architecture point of view, and they may even be involved in some of these other bits and pieces, like the development of all of this stuff. But the where do we want to go, what do we want to do, sits with me. There are organizations out there for whom they don't look quite like that. And therefore you have a power struggle between, is it technology
IT.
leading or is it business leading?
Yeah.
I think we've got a kind of happy medium where it kind of works okay, and we can use external parties as well to, you know, supplement that where needs be. But I think that is therefore, you know, when you think about are other COOs doing it, well, it depends what organization they're in. Whether the COO is going, well, I'm the one who's getting chewed out for not having delivered the ROI here, I'm running with this.
Yeah.
And the technologists are kind of going, the hell you are, because we are the technology. This is technology, and it sits with us. There was a survey that I kind of saw recently where, you know, people went, oh yes, this is really kind of going to make a difference for us. We're all, you know, high percentage, 90 odd %, you know, great. But 70 odd % adoption kind of issues and 40 odd % saying this is tearing our company apart.
Yeah.
It's dramatic, right? Can you imagine that? 42% of people think that their company is being torn apart by AI. And it didn't expand on what, but I think it's that tension between technology and also the kind of the business side of things in the pursuit of, you know, that return on investment.
Yeah. I think we saw one as well that where there were people who were proactively acting against the initiatives because of how it had been rolled out. And going back to what we were talking about before about change management, how sort of sensitively this needs to be done inside of organizations with a real plan and not just jumping in at the deep end and doing it that way. So WTW is a huge organization. What, you 50,000 employees about, or
45, 50, depends on what point you think
so
about it. But
this
yeah,
is a
that
hard
kind of
question.
stuff.
But if you were to sort of take everything that you've learned and try and distill it for a smaller organization, maybe an organization of 100 people or 200 people, because they don't have the resources of a WTW to do all of this. And what would your advice to them be to try to introduce AI, maybe as a means of being able to compete against the bigger players in the market?
Punch above their weight, yeah.
I kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier. I think the don't run before you can walk is the thing. It's very easy to get drawn into kind of like, oh, we've got to go really fast and stuff. But you know, you said it yourself. There's loads of people at different kind of stages here. I don't think anybody's getting entirely left behind right now. I think there's you need to be within touching distance. So don't rush. But a thing I learned from another experience I had, I actually led a technology project, put a non-techie guy in kind of a big kind of technology refresh. Whose idea was that? But maybe it was genius in a way because I came at it from a different perspective. Right. I wasn't bogged down in the technology side of it. I was focused on the mission and the strategy and the vision and the leading people through it. But my learning from that was we didn't think enough about reimagining the way in which we do stuff. So putting that in the AI context, it's entirely possible that people will just go, here's what we do today. Here's what we've been doing for the last X many years.
Yeah.
Let's just do exactly that, but with AI on it. So we'll do it kind of faster and stuff. I actually think you've got an opportunity here to really kind of reimagine the way you do stuff and think about it differently. I'll give you an example. If I think about our part of the business, the investment business, we've got all these great researchers. They're really kind of like thinking about kind of asset classes and ideas and, always coming up with them. And then what we'll do is go, oh, we've had an idea for a new product. And then we'll go, okay, could we launch that? Yeah, absolutely we could do. Okay, is there a market for it? Oh, don't know really. We'll kind of think about that. So we'll often go and try and kind of drum up business and stuff, and maybe that's successful, or maybe it kind of slightly disappoints a little bit. But it's a bottom-up kind of approach to stuff.
Yes.
Because you think there's a great idea, now you go and try and find a market for it. Well, what if you turn that on its head a little bit? What if now you used AI to look at various things out in the market for you, to look at flows and find information about where pension schemes and sovereign wealth funds are actually investing, to look at competitor analysis, who's launching what, to look at signals out in the market, macro, micro kind of factors, to look at, you name it, put another bunch of stuff in there as well. And that analysis maybe says the smart money play is launch a product like X. Now, would I stop doing the bottom up bit because you don't want to kill innovation and things like that? But taking that opportunity to put something on top. But if we just did the bottom up approach and said, let's put AI around that, we'll go on just our research process and, can we record meetings and do meeting notes and stuff like that, which is all great. But that ability to reimagine and rethink things would be, one of my kind of counsels to people. We've actually got down the route of building a few AI work, opportunities, and gone halfway through, hang on a minute, they're not as distinct as we thought they were. They're actually much closer together. And then we've almost kind of had to go back to kind of square one and go, actually, it's one workflow. It's not the 5 that we thought it was. And that's, again, a little bit of kind of haste to please and to deliver and whatever. So there's the balancing it off. Long story short, make sure that before you kind of try and run, you can walk. And I think reimagining your processes is the first question to be asking yourself as well.
Again, I know you're not from the tech side of the business, but I'm actually interested your tech stack or what you've been using to introduce. You mentioned Copilot.
Yeah.
What other applications have you used?
So we've been working with a firm called Writer. They, I think, have penetrated around 10 of our teams across the overall WTW business in various ways. And the interesting thing about someone like WTW is we work in very different ways. So we're not all kind of focused in the same way. And therefore, that can be one of the challenges itself, right? How do we kind of like see where the use case that I'm using is the same or slightly different and sufficiently nuanced to somebody else in our employee experience business or our health and benefits business. But we've been using Writer to start with a little bit of generative AI stuff. We do have a lot of tech ourselves, right? And we have people building things and working on stuff. There's a data extraction tool that we've been working on internally, not me, but other people.
You've got your own data scientists and
would we describe them as that? I'm not sure. We've kind of like gone down that road, but a lot of it is kind of tech people who have been able to kind of pick up this stuff and kind of play with it a little bit. So there's a bit of that going on. And then there's various other kind of niche kind of players that across the WCW stack would be doing. So our governance model, if you like, is central kind of like governance of can I or can't I work with, can I do this, can I not do that, from a no, we've already kind of got to deal with these people, therefore we use this firm for this type of thing. And after that, there's a bit of kind of like, carte blanche to actually kind of do stuff and use, your own use cases, because we will be nuanced to a degree from one side of the business to another. So Copilot, Microsoft Copilot, Writer have been our kind of 2 start points. And then our third strand at the moment is then document extraction using this internal tool as well. Now, if you talk to one of my kind of colleagues in another part of the business, they're much bigger than I am. They'll be using other things beyond that as well. My budget's a little bit different.
How have you approached the adoption and the rollout of those technologies like Copilot, Writer, your own built technology? Has there been similarities, differences, the way or learnings you've had from getting those adopted?
We've started small.
Yeah.
We've generally done that with kind of small groups and tried to be kind of like representative around that and kind of spread the love a little bit so that everybody's going to get a bit of that. And I think that's been fine. But when I then think about moving to the next level of that, I look at something like, Copilot. You've got the non-licensed version, you've got the licensed version. Everybody's got access to the non-licensed version, and everybody's obsessed with the idea that we need Copilot licenses because I want to be able to record meetings and get the action points off it quickly.
Right.
And I'm like, that's one use of it. Right, there are broader uses than that, and if we're just giving out licenses and paying for the licenses now on top of that, just for that, it doesn't really kind of seem like the right thing to do. So where I'm at now is, yes, we started off with spreading the love a little bit, but now can we target particular teams where that's going to have a material benefit? So if you take our researchers, all they do all day, a bit like you guys at the moment, me, is sit and talk to people, right? Yeah. And talk to them about stuff, and then they've got to kind of make notes on that, and that's brilliant. There might be somebody who's a team assistant who we say, can you come along to the odd meeting and, take the minutes of it and things? Well, is that the right person to then give a license to? Because if all they're doing is that one meeting per month or per week where it saves them a personal productivity versus I could do this at scale across our research team and therefore that has implications for us in a different way. Those are the kind of things that got to balance off, and that's not being disingenuous to one role or the other. But I think that's how I'm trying to be, and we're trying to be more thoughtful now about the deployment of that. So started small, but to get to scale, it may be a slightly different strategy. So rather than spreading the love, it's now kind of actually targeting where we actually put that out. And I think back that up with also ongoing training, ongoing kind of education, tracking those kind of like adoption stats. And not trying to seem like you're, being too overbearing around that, too micromanaging. But, we have got policies now whereby if people don't use their Copilot license for a period of time, we'll take it away from them.
Use it or lose it. Yeah. And how do you decide when it's a Copilot license versus, a Writer license or another technology?
Our filter system, the whole ROI model, the kind of thinking about that. Like I say, I talked about those workshops we've done recently. There were 77 ideas. I think 54 of them are kind of suitable for something like Writer, but some of them are for Copilot, some of them for this DocLM tool that we've got as well. So you need a group of people who are doing that kind of filtering in that, and that's what our AI working group is challenged to do. The other evolution of that group, a little bit going back to the kind of training, is that I want those people to become not just acolytes for this is a great stuff, but also kind of champions for being able to become more prompt engineers, if you like, or kind of actually people who can build agents themselves. So I think that's an interesting dynamic as you roll out more. How much do you rely on the vendor to start with because it gets you going versus over time you start taking more of that control back or working with them to be able to have more autonomy over, developing things. And then that brings the other challenge of it is, have you now created that work product, that cottage industry? How do you control all of that? I think that it goes back to that kind of business versus technology. One might project that the role of technology is going to shift from what they do today to being more the backstop and stopping us from, cyber risk and, network integrity, but also control around, not just creating this cottage industry of lots of people now going, oh, I'm building another agent and things. So there needs to be a little bit of something around that.
But you do see a situation where maybe the creation of these AI tools is more democratized across the organization.
Correct. And that's the risk I'm talking about there. With the democratization of that and anybody and everybody being able to do that, how do I maintain that mission focus and not that somebody's doing a little pet project over here without then killing innovation? Because, if
Balance.
I just say, only do what I say, people are like, well, don't want to do it then in that case because you're not stimulating me. But I've got to drive that balance between, people going off and doing own pet projects over here that are not really kind of central to the mission versus, being a little bit overbearing on them.
We're coming to the end of our time. So a last question for you. You've been at this, I say this AI thing, but let's say AI adoption across WTW. If you had your time again 2 years ago, what's the one thing that you think you would have, if you could speak to yourself from 2 years ago, what would you tell them based on what you know now?
At a personal level, I think I should have got into it a little bit quicker than I had done. I feel like, your impression of me is probably like, oh, you're quite into all of this. But I feel like I've kept up and I've shortcutted it, right? Yeah. So as I said, I've not got into the technology.
Most people, I think, feel that way.
I'm just like, no, right, that's the way we're going. Right, let's now create the kind of the strategy around it. I think if I'd have started again with it, it would have been to a bit much more thoughtful about what's the outcome we want from it, what are we trying to kind of like achieve overall, and how do I then kind of create that momentum towards it. I'm not saying the strategy we did of like let people play with it and get some confidence in it was entirely wrong, but now I'm going to have to make those decisions of like, I want a co-pilot's license. No, I'm sorry, you don't fit the agenda for that co-pilot's license. You can't have one. Oh, I'm sad now. That's really bad because you gave me the impression that we were all going to get these tools and things. So maybe curbing a little bit of the enthusiasm, having a little bit more of a plan up front rather than bumbling into it slightly. One, if I'll do a second, and I have kind of mentioned it a couple of times, I suppose, it's that think about the reimagination of what you do today. Yeah. And that's the bit where I don't regret it, because again, it helped with building some momentum and helped with getting people kind of enthusiastic and what have you. But that's where I think the shift is going to be for organizations and where the ROI is going to come, because people really kind of think about reimagining that. And then it's part two of that, data strategy. If we had another half an hour, we could go on about that, because I think that's the other bit that people need to kind of like look at. You've got to kind of align your AI strategy with your data strategy, because we know the old adage of rubbish in, rubbish out. Yeah. If you've not cleaned up your data, now you're just going to get faster rubbish out using the AI. So I think that's the key thing. Now, fortunately, we were already kind of thinking about that, and I kind of timed that bit a bit right. But if I was, if I'd got that wrong, then that would be a kind of challenge for us, because I think we would be then going off down bad paths, and that's probably one that people need to also be really bearing in mind.
So it's great. So if we if I remember, so we're looking at understanding your ROI, having a plan, trying to reimagine your workflows, and making sure that your data is where it needs to be. Those are the four areas.
You've got the religion,
Yeah.
Good advice.
All right, Paul, thank you so much. It's been very interesting chatting with you. It's not always that you get to speak to somebody who has done a large scale AI adoption across a large organization. So thank you for that. Thank you for the lessons. I'm sure there's going to be people who are going to listen to many of those and take them on. So really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers.
And that brings this episode to a close. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you again next time.